Good evening, friends, fiends, witches, warlocks, and night owls supremes. Welcome to A Bit Late. It's me, A Bit Frank, and boy oh boy is it getting chilly outside. It's definitely spooky season, sweater weather, crisp air, apples, all the things. And because of that, why don't we read a familiar tale, The Glass Coffin? On the main channel, I did a little bit of a background into this story, but I realized we have not read it on this channel yet, and it's kind of interesting. But how are you doing today? Everything going okay? I hope it's better now as the day goes on or the night goes on, and I hope that everything just works out fine. But without further ado, grab a blanket, some pillows, an animal familiar, tea, coffee, whatever you need to get settled in for tonight's tale collected by the Brothers Grimm, The Glass Coffin. Let no one ever say that a poor tailor cannot advance far in the world and achieve great honors. I will not say that. They need only to hit upon the right person and, most important, to have good luck. And probably some other factors working for them too, just saying. Once there was such a tailor who was a pleasing and smart apprentice. He set out on his travels and wandered into a large forest. And since he did not know the way, he got lost. Night fell, and there was nothing left for him to do but to search for a place to sleep in this desolate spot. Of course, he could have made a bed on the soft moss, but his fear of wild animals would not let him have rest. That is relatable. Eventually, he decided to spend the night in a tree. He looked for a large oak tree, climbed to the top, and thanked heavens that he had carried his flat iron with him. Otherwise, the wind that blew over the treetops would have swept him away. So the flat iron weighs him down, then. Okay, cool. After he had spent a few hours in the dark, not without shivering in his shoes, I also relate, he saw a light shining from someplace nearby. Since he thought that people might be living there and he would feel better off with them than on the branches of a tree, he climbed down slowly and headed towards the light, which led him to a small cottage made out of reeds and bushes. Bravely he knocked, and the door opened. By the glow of the light that issued forth, he could see an old, gray-haired little man clad in a coat sewn together with brightly colored patches. He sounds fun. "Who are you and what do you want?" the man asked with a snarling voice. "I am a poor tailor," the young man replied, "and I was overtaken by the night here in the wilderness. I beseech you to let me stay in your cottage until morning." "Get on your way," responded the old man in a sullen tone. "I don't want to have anything to do with you tramps. Find your lodging somewhere else." With these words, he intended to turn his back on the tailor, but the young man held him so tightly by his coattails, oh, that seems mean or aggressive, and pleaded in such a touching way that the old man, who was not so cruel as he made himself seem, finally softened and took him into his cottage, where he gave the tailor something to eat and then directed him to a very good bed in a corner. So unlike the story The Little House in the Wood, where the girls who need to spend the night in the cottage have to cook and clean and make the beds before they get a sleeping bed, this guy can just sleep in a bed and he gets food made for him? I sense that's not fair, but I also sense that unlike in that story, this old man is not cursed like that one was. And I don't want to spoil that tale for you if you haven't heard it yet, so check it out if you haven't. The tired tailor did not need to be rocked to sleep. Well, thank goodness. Indeed, he slept like an angel until morning, and he would not have even considered getting up if he had not been startled by a loud noise, a terrible roaring and bellowing that penetrated the walls of the house. To his surprise, the tailor, moved by his courage, got dressed quickly and hurried outside, where he saw a large black bull and a beautiful stag in the midst of a violent fight near the little house. They charged at each other with such tremendous fury that the ground trembled from their trampling and the air resounded with their cries. For a long time, it was unclear who would win the fight. Finally, the stag plunged his antlers into the body of the bull, whereupon it sank into the ground with a horrible groan and was finished off by a few mere thrusts from the stag. Epic. The tailor, who had watched the battle with astonishment, continued to stand there motionless when the stag bounded over to him. Wow, surprise. And then, before he could escape, the stag lifted him up with his huge antlers. Whoa! The tailor did not have any time to think about what was happening, for he was swiftly carried over dale and hill, valley and mountain, forest and meadow. He clutched the antlers with both hands and resigned himself to his fate. It seemed as if he were flying until finally the stag stopped in front of a rocky cliff and let the tailor slide gently to the ground. Oh, how nice. The tailor, who was more dead than alive, needed a long time to regain his composure. Poor guy, oh. When he had more or less recovered, the stag who was standing next to him knocked his antlers against the door in a cliff with such force that it sprang open. Ooh, cool. Flames of fire shot out, followed by a great deal of smoke, which made the tailor lose sight of the stag. The tailor did not know what to do or where to turn to escape this desolate spot and get back to people and society again. As he stood there unable to make a decision, a voice sounded from inside the cliff and called to him, "Enter without fear, no harm will be done to you." To be sure, he wavered, but he was also driven by a mysterious power. So he obeyed the voice and went through an iron door into a large, spacious hall. The walls, ceilings, and floor were made of glittering, polished blocks of stone. Signs were engraved in the stone which he could not decipher. Full of astonishment, he looked at everything and was just about to leave when the voice sounded once more and again said to him, "Step upon the stone that lies in the middle of the hall. Your great fortune awaits you." His courage had grown so much that he was not afraid to follow the order. The stone began to give way under his feet, and he sank slowly into the depths. When the tailor reached solid ground again and looked around, he found himself in a hall that was the same size as the previous one. However, there was even more to see and admire in this. In niches carved into the walls stood vases of transparent glass filled with a colored vapor or with blue steam. Two large glass chests sat facing each other on the floor of the hall, and they immediately aroused his curiosity. I'm sure they did. I'm sure, buddy. He walked over to one of them and peeked inside. In it, he saw a beautiful dwelling similar to a castle, surrounded by farmhouses, stables, barns, and a lot of other fine things. Everything was tiny but carefully and delicately made, as though carved with great precision by a skilled hand. He would not have taken his eyes off this rarity if the voice had not spoken to him once more. It commanded him to turn around and look at the glass chest that stood across from him. His astonishment became even greater when he caught sight of an exceedingly beautiful maiden. How do we know she's a maiden? I've always wondered that, just by looking. Oh, I can totally tell. I mean, probably, of course, age, but anyway. Just late night brain thoughts. In fairy tale realms, you know how it goes. She lay as if asleep, wrapped in her long blonde hair, which seemed like a precious cloak. Her eyes were tightly shut. However, the bright complexion of her face and a ribbon that bobbed up and down as she breathed left no doubt that she was alive. Ah yes, the infamous fairy tale death sleep. Preserve the beauty, but keep everything maidenly. This is why we read this story on the main channel, or not read it, but covered it. With a pounding heart, I'm sure, the tailor was regarding the beauty when suddenly she opened her eyes, gave a start, and then stirred in joy at the sight of him. "Good heavens," she exclaimed, "I shall soon be free. Quick, quick, help me out of my prison. If you push back the bolt of this glass coffin, I'll be saved." It's a glass chest though, not a coffin. The tailor obeyed without hesitating, and she immediately lifted up the glass top, climbed out, and rushed into a corner of the hall where she wrapped herself in a large cloak. So she was nude in that glass coffin thing. Chest. Awesome. Then she sat down on a stone and called the young man to her. After she gave him a friendly kiss on the lips, of course, as you do, she said, "I have been hoping for a long time, my savior, that you'd come. Now heaven in its mercy has led you to me and put an end to my suffering. And on this very day that my suffering has ended, your happiness shall begin. Heaven has chosen you as my husband, and you shall spend the rest of your life in joy and peace. And you shall be provided with an abundance of earthly possessions. Sit down now and listen to my fateful story. I am the daughter of a rich count. My parents died when I was still at a tender age. In accord with their last will, I was to be raised by my older brother. We loved each other so dearly and were so much alike in our ideas and inclinations that we both decided never to marry, but to remain together for the rest of our lives. There was never a lack of company in our house. Neighbors and friends visited us frequently, and we were the most hospitable to everyone. Well, one evening it happened that a stranger came riding into our castle and requested a night's lodging because he had been unable to reach the next town. We granted his request cordially and politely, and during dinner he entertained us with his conversation that was elegantly mixed with stories. My brother took such a great liking to him that he asked him to spend a few days with us, and after some hesitation, the stranger agreed. We got up from the table very late at night, and the stranger was shown to his room. Tired as I was, I hurried to spread my limbs on his soft bed, but no sooner had I fallen asleep than I was wakened by the sound of soft and lovely music. Beware the soft and lovely music, my friends and fiends. For real though, it gets weird. Since I had no idea where it was coming from, I wanted to call my chambermaid who slept in the next room. Yet, to my astonishment, I found that I was deprived of my speech by a mysterious power, and I felt as if overcome by a nightmare, unable to utter the slightest sound. See? Dangerous music. And sleep paralysis combo. 1-2. In the meantime, by the light of my night lamp, I saw the stranger enter my room through 2 doors that had been tightly locked. Oh, stranger man, no! He approached me and said that through magic arts that stood at his command, he had caused the lovely music to sound in order to wake me. He had then forced his way through all the locks with the intention of offering me his heart and hand. However, his magic arts repulsed me so much that I did not deem his offer worthy of a reply. First of all, she can't speak because the music has got her tongue, but second of all, the magic is what's repelling her, not the creepy nature of this proposal of marriage, middle of the night, bedroom-esque. Whoa now, hey now, wow, oof, yikes. He stood there a while without moving, probably with the expectation of receiving a favorable answer. But why and how would he be entitled to that? Whatever. But when I continued to remain silent, he declared angrily that he would revenge himself and find some means to punish my arrogance. Entitled, piece of work, man. Come on. Then he left the room. I slept a most restless night and could manage to fall asleep only towards morning. I certainly couldn't. After that, I would be on high alert and I would be telling my brother, "What the heck, man?" Right? When I awoke, I rushed to my brother to tell him what had happened, but I didn't find him in his room. Should have told him last night, my friend. His servant told me that he had gone out hunting with the stranger at daybreak. Immediately, I sensed that something was wrong. Wow, your spider sense tingling a little this late? I got dressed quickly and had my palfrey saddled and rode in a full gallop towards the forest in the company of a servant. However, their horse stumbled and broke its leg, so they could not follow me. I continued on my way without stopping, and in a few minutes, I saw the stranger heading toward me and leading a beautiful stag by a rope. Oh no. I asked him where he had left my brother and how he had come upon the stag, whose eyes were filled with large tears. Oh. Instead of answering me, he began to laugh loudly. I became furious, pulled out a pistol, and fired it at the monster. Was not expecting that. But the bullet bounced off his chest and rebounded into the head of my horse. What? I fell to the ground, and the stranger mumbled some words that robbed me of my consciousness. Oh, I don't like this stranger. When I regained my senses, I found myself in a glass coffin in this underground cavern. The magician appeared once more and told me that he had turned my brother into a stag. The crying one. Moreover, that he had reduced my castle with all its surroundings to such a tiny size that they could be put into the other glass chest along with my people, who had all been transformed into vapor and were confined in glass bottles. Oh no, all your friends are now gas. However, he said, if I would comply with his desire, it would be easy for him to return everything to its original condition. Oh, I'm sure it would. He had only to open the containers and everything would regain its natural form. I refused to answer him just as I had done before. He disappeared and left me lying in my prison, and I fell into a deep sleep. Among the many things I envisioned in my sleep, that which consoled me most was the image of a young man who came and set me free. And today, when I opened my eyes, I saw you and knew that my dream had been fulfilled. Now I want you to help me make the other things I saw come true. First, we must lift the other glass chest that contains my castle and move it to that broad stone. Yes, because you do not want to open that inside an underground cavern because everything would be destroyed. Or it could be a really cool new city underground, but I think the buildings are probably taller than the little cave. Actually, wait, no. I don't know. They're big cavern rooms. It could be cool, but that's a different story, I suppose. As soon as the glass chest was moved to the stone slab, the stone began to rise and carried the maiden and the young man through an opening into the upper hall. From there, they could easily reach the open air. Then the maiden opened the top of the chest, and it was wonderful to see how the castle, houses, and farms expanded and grew rapidly back to their natural size. The maiden and young man returned to the underground cavern and had the vapor-filled containers carried up by the stone, which in my mind is like a moving video game platform, like the Sega Genesis Aladdin game. I don't know why I'm thinking about this right now. No sooner did the maiden open the bottles than the blue steam shot out and transformed itself into living creatures, whom the maiden recognized as her people and servants. Her joy became even greater when her brother, who had killed the magician in the form of a bull, came out of the forest in its human form. And on that very same day, the maiden kept her promise and gave her hand at the altar to the lucky tailor. The end. My dear friends and fiends, that was The Glass Coffin as collected by the Brothers Grimm. I feel like it's a very interesting way of telling a story. The difficult part happens. It's actually not even that difficult for the tailor. He just wakes up, goes to a cave, and opens a box. But then the princess who had been sleeping, well, she's not a princess, daughter of a count, wakes up, tells all of the woe that befell her and her brother. They restore everything back, and then she gets married, even though she wasn't going to get married, but she does. I don't know. I mean, generally a happy ending, and I hope it has kept your mind busy and occupied and thinking about good things, except for when it talked about bad things. I don't know, but I hope you're having a wonderful evening, and if you're awake and you want to hear more stories, stick around. Now off to sleep and dream what you will, or stay a while and enjoy another tale. Whichever you choose, I'll speak to you again, and until then, stay spooky, my friends. Good night.